In the place of objectivity, Kierkegaard presupposes subjectivity, faith, and infinite passion. Now, ordinarily, faith means a belief in something, if only in the efficacy of curing warts by drinking vinegar. But the something that Kierkegaard proposes as the object of faith is neither so definite nor so intellectual as a belief in the virtues of vinegar. Faith does not need the Bible. Faith does not need theology. Knowing that something is true only harms and destroys faith. What then does the neurotic Dane mean by faith? Does the phrase infinite passion answer this question? What is infinite passion? Surely Kierkegaard cannot want us to know what faith and passion are, because if we knew, we would have destroyed them. Many pages later in the book, its author defines faith as the objective uncertainty due to the repulsion of the absurd held by the passion of inwardness intensified to the utmost degree. Now, that's what faith is. Something yet needs to be said about absurdity, but subject to this further explanation, does this definition of faith convey any meaning whatever? To an extent, possibly to a large extent, Kierkegaard realized that he had not and could not communicate anything. How can a man, he asked, how can a man communicate the conviction that truth is subjectivity and inwardness? Therefore, Kierkegaard relies on an indirect communication. Socratic irony, jesting, ridicule may possibly suggest what cannot possibly be said. But is this so? Or has Kierkegaard misunderstood Socrates? Socrates used irony as a pedagogical device. It held the attention of those who otherwise would shut their ears in fatuous self-satisfaction. Socrates also used dialectical questioning to draw the truth out of the young but serious students. His dialectic, however, was not Hegelian dialectics, in which all is Heraclitean flux. Socrates was sharp in his ridicule of those who could not step into the same thought twice, but were always changing their opinions. And no matter how ironic or indirect his method was, he did not aim to produce an unintelligent and unintelligible infinite passion. Socrates aimed to produce clear-cut definitions which could be memorized, a phrase with which Kierkegaard sarcastically castigates intellectualists. Perhaps, however, insistence on the fact that Kierkegaard has misunderstood Socrates as much as he has misunderstood Christianity is irrelevant. He has his own theory of indirect communication, and it is this that one must examine. Now, supposing that Kierkegaard could, by his indirect method, somehow stimulate an infinite passion in his pupil, he could not know that his pupil's passion was infinite, nor could the pupil know that he had now experienced what Kierkegaard intended. Still, even though neither could know it, just perhaps the infinite passion has been aroused. Then what? What good is it? Does it, as the gospel information claims to do, lead to eternal happiness? What makes Kierkegaard think that it does? Did he ever receive from God the intellectually understood information that information was worthless and passion guaranteed heaven? Surely Kierkegaard's embarrassment here is more quixotic than church, Bible, or even Hegel. Nevertheless, Kierkegaard is not altogether opposed to intellectual understanding. He even insists on its necessity. But its role may at first occasion some surprise. The matter is connected with the mention of absurdity in his definition of faith. Passionate inwardness holds fast to the absurd in faith. But to hold to the absurd because it is absurd requires clear understanding. In one place, his explanation goes like this: without risk, there is no faith. And the greater the risk, the greater the faith. When Socrates believed that there was a God, he held fast to the objective uncertainty with the whole passion of his inwardness, and it is precisely in this contradiction and in the risk of faith and it is precisely in this contradiction and in this risk that faith is rooted. Now it is otherwise. Instead of objective uncertainty, there is here a certainty, namely, that objectively it is absurd. And this absurdity, held fast in the passion of inwardness, is faith. The Socratic ignorance is as a witty jest in comparison with the inwardness of facing the absurd. What now is the absurd? The absurd is that the eternal truth has come into being in time, that God has come into being, has been born, has grown up, and so forth. Kierkegaard does not mean that the incarnation and whatever other Christian doctrines he may have in mind are surprising or psychologically incredible to heathen peasants and German philosophers. It is not as if the common sense of the sinful human race never expected atonement and resurrection. This is not what Kierkegaard means by paradox and absurdity. He means precisely that the doctrines are self-contradictory, therefore meaningless, therefore absurd. This is why a certain amount of intellectual ability and activity must accompany faith. He, a Christian, he may very well have understanding. Indeed, he must have it in order to believe against understanding.